Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Balls in Your Face Marketing. We are in for a treat. And man, you know how they say that a picture says 1,000 words, but let's be honest about that. That's really only for the good ones. We are very lucky today. I have one of, if not the preeminent photographer in Canada, David Leyes.
I turn my camera on, I cut my fingers on the way, the way I'm slipping away, I turn my feelings on.
David, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you.
So I mean, man, you have shot some pretty amazing people. You've shot, David Bowie, Paul McCartney. Drake, which I do want to get into at one point. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. If I, people just go to davidlease.com. I'm going to put the links below. Check out his work. It is amazing. I don't even know, somehow I managed to get in that list of people. He makes you look good. I can tell you that much.
Well, there was a famous artist who was an amazing artist, and he, not that I'm comparing myself to Van Gogh or anything, but I think it would have been Van Gogh who cleaned up crime scenes for a living. So I'm just saying that I think everybody, a lot of us, or a lot of people who think I'm famous or what, but I do. The majority of my work is actors. I just shot a 13-year-old kid the other day, and I love it. Actually, it's a lot of fun. And it makes you humble really quick. And I did shoot a lot of people in my life, a lot of famous people through the Molson Amphitheater or my ties to music. So Paul McCartney, I shot him live. I did shoot a press conference actually, but I have shot some other famous one-on-one from other famous people one-on-one.
That's right. Joni Mitchell, I think you did one-on-one. Was that what?
Yes, I did through Illuminato, which was great and a lot of fun. And she was very kind and actually asked me if I would be so kind to, could you please take pictures of me and my friend? It was so nice that she asked, but it was great. And she's actually coming this November 2018 to Toronto.
Amazing.
So, just so you know. Anyway.
So tell me a bit about, how you got started, how you mastered your craft over these years.
I picked up a camera. I would go into a camera store, this Pond's camera in Guelph, Ontario, and I picked up a camera one day and it had an auto winder. So as soon as I picked it up and pushed the little trigger, it went, and I was like, and from that moment I was hooked. Also, I had, there was a camera club in my high school, and it was one of the first things as the youngest child of four, and constantly always being told what to do and how to do things, photography was one of the things that nobody in my family knew about, my immediate family anyway, because my grandfather and uncles were good photographers, but that didn't influence me until later. But it was the only thing I could learn by myself. So I actually would spend hours in the dark room, skipping classes, learning things, asking other teachers who were nearby, calculations as far as mixtures. And this is when we had a dark room. Yeah. So, chemicals and exposure times and film developing, and temperatures. And so it was kind of cool. And to a degree, a little bit of magic for me. So it was a lot of fun. And I remember, selling pictures at Christmas time of David Bowie for money for Christmas.
Why don't you tell me that story? You told me that one, but that's a great one, right? You were down at Much Music there, I think, and you had it was a room full of photographers.
That was Iggy Pop?
Or was it Iggy Pop?
I don't know. There's a few. Oh, right. So there's a few instances at Much Music, which was kind of interesting. First one being, I just went down with some pictures of Iggy Pop that I had taken. and Iggy Pop was doing a live and interactive. And just so happened, they said, hey, let's invite the people from outside. So we got to go inside the Much Music environment, hang around. I had my pictures, and at one point during commercial, they said, has anybody got a question for Iggy? And I didn't know. And the woman beside me said, hey, ask him what it's like if he's afraid of dying or something. So I went, okay. So I put up my hand. But first, I said, but first I have a photo for you. And I showed him a photo, and I actually had some nudes in the bottom. And he liked those ones better. Everybody was bitching at me to ask my question. So I asked the question. He answered it very nicely. But that was my first, and I actually met a woman, the woman who asked me to ask that question. I forget her name off the top of my head, but that in turn led me to shooting, Buck Henry, who was the creator of, who was the writer for Get Smart. He was a Saturday Night Live writer, but she did a commercial with him, and I got to shoot him one-on-one, which was fun. So it's all about relationships. Other time I was at Much Music, I was asked to shoot in Moses Neimer's office. So I was allowed to shoot. I was just kind of a roaming photographer, but mainly in Moses' office. Yet I was also on the red carpet, not beside the red carpet with the other photographers. I was actually on the red carpet. I had no business being there, but I didn't tell them that. And it gave me a great opportunity to get some great shots. And then we were up in Moses' office afterwards. David Bowie was about to come in the room, and the office was packed with all these other photographers. But a couple minutes later, we're all milling about, and this woman walks in and just yells out, okay, all the photographers out except for David Leyes. Just like, yes. So and I took that opportunity and shot my ass off to the point where David's publicist came over and said, okay, you can stop now. I did. Kept going, but no, and I actually got to shoot Moses several different poses, and but it's all about relationships, and those relationships from Much Music led to other things, and that's my life is one big relationships. The people I'm working with today, actually today, this afternoon, after I get off the phone with you, I'm going up to Newmarket to shoot with a woman that I've shot with. I originally shot when she used to work for Chorus Entertainment. So it's been this long spider web of connections. Yeah.
Well, that's exactly how I came to meet you, was through a mutual friend. I have to thank a lot, James Heidbrich. He used to own one of the warmest studios here in Toronto, Chemical Sound. They recorded some great bands like Sloan, for example. And yeah, he put me in touch with you. I've worked on a lot of video shoots, certainly a few photo shoots. I have never seen somebody, I mean, your talent just blows me away. I mean, because here's the thing, you were able to multitask really in so many ways. You and I were like, talk. While we were talking, you're sitting there directing me. You're like, you do this, whatever, and I'm like following your direction. And you're obviously keeping in mind the lighting and the backdrop and all of these other things. End up with these incredible photos. I mean, I just that ability to direct and do all of that at the same time is just mind-boggling.
Well, I think it's just the ability. Just the Malcolm Gladwell says the 10,000 hours. Oh, and I'm listening to Julie Andrews' biography.
Oh.
And she said something. She said, and I forget it, but it was a quote about amateurs and professionals. And it's a great quote, and I wish I could remember it. But basically, the professional quote, amateurs try hard and professionals just do, or something. And as you were saying that, I was just thinking, well, I have done it so much that it's second nature to me. And what I want you to be is comfortable. So I end up talking my ass off. And I think my father was really good at that as well. He was a salesman, And he is a traveling salesman, barbecues, staplers, anything. And but people loved him, and I think it was. And I would go on cookouts with him. So if you would go to Home Hardware, he would have the barbecue out there, and he would just talk people's ear off. But he would also make upside down angel food cake on those barbecues. He would make poor man's ham. He would make all these things. But I just realized that it was more about conversations about life and about who we are. I think that really helped people relax and make people realize that, you know, this photo shoot thing shouldn't be taken that seriously. And if I do make a joke, people are comfortable to laugh. People are comfortable to be themselves. So I think that's what really helps me get those final images. Also telling people to have a really good breakfast and a good night's sleep the night before.
Yes, you do.
I've had a good night's sleep or a good breakfast. But yeah, so I think it's just having put those 10,000 hours in, and also when I work in my studio, I use natural light for the most part. So yeah, I know what I'm doing, kind of thing.
Yes, you do. Clearly, yeah, I know. I mean, it's.
Why don't you talk a lot?
No, well, so here's something that I kind of wanted to get into with you, because you and I started this conversation. So let me. I don't know even know necessarily where to start with this. What I'm going to say is this is a conversation roughly about controversy. Because one photo that, you know, certainly has stirred up a fair bit of controversy was one that got dug up because of some battle between Drake and Pusha T, blackface photo.
Yes.
So what did you tell me a bit about the background behind that? I know he requested it of you. It wasn't, I don't think it was your. Right.
So first off, the reason why it got on my website is that a person that I've shot many, many times, I was having a conversation with her, and I was like, we were talking about Drake. And, you know, I said, yeah, like every photographer in this town has shot Drake. And we were listening off the photographer. She goes, well, you shot Drake. And I went, when? She goes, when you did that shoot for Us and Them. And I went, oh my God, because I'd totally forgotten about the shoot. And I have a policy where if there's actors that I've shot before and they're doing something that they truly love, that's in their field, that they're not being paid for, be it like a one-man show or something that they're doing for the love of their craft, I will do it for free or a couple bottles of wine. And I think this was one of the cases where, I've forgotten his name, but the partner of Drake at the time, they were doing a show called Us and Them, basically about some black guys and their friends and their trials and tribulations in the acting industry. So Drake and his friend got together and they had that idea to get dressed up in blackface, which was they're black guys, and the one black guy whose name I can't remember, look it up, Us and Them on YouTube, Drake. And he's really black. But anyway, they put themselves in blackface. And to me, it just made sense because they're two black guys in the acting industry and they're still dealing with stereotypical casting and just, you know, they're still dealing with the same shit that went on like 30, 40 years ago, just in more maybe subtle ways. So no problem shooting that. And that was back in 2007. So in the meantime, I'd put that on my website and heard nothing about it. I had tried, I had a co-op student sitting where I'm sitting right now, working on stuff, and she saw my Drake blackface photo, and she goes, "Oh my, that's so cool!" And she goes, "You haven't, like, we talked about it," and I said, "Yeah, I haven't. Should I put it on Instagram?" She goes, "Yeah, you should put it on Instagram." As soon as I put it on Instagram, two black acquaintances of mine emailed me and said, "That's bad." I went, "Yeah, but it's the concept." "No, that's bad." And I was like, "Okay," and I just took it off. And I kind of regretted it, but I still left it on my webpage. Anyway, years go by, and all of a sudden I get this email from or I get a lot of notifications on my Instagram regarding, I guess, my latest photo. So I didn't understand the comments, and there was a lot of like, "You're a racist," and blah blah blah. And I went, "This is a beautiful girl. Why is she racist?" It's like a dude with coffee grounds on it, and it's anyway. I was like, "What's going on?" And then I was like, and then all of a sudden, the world blew up. It was just mind-numbing and crazy. Every single news organization in the United States contacted me, from the New York Post, the New York Times, to the New Yorker, to USA Today, Harvey Levin. Harvey Levin wanted to talk to me personally. I got 4 requests from TMZ alone. But on advice from a publicist that I trusted and that I trust, she said, "Don't talk to anybody. They'll only turn it around." And I had made a comment, basically what I just said to you about respecting, about being proud of the fact. Well, I tweeted, somebody tweeted, "Well, you could have denied it." And I said, "Hell no." I said, I'm just proud to be part of a black man's statement about stereotyping. And that's the only quote that anybody had of me. And I had tons of great feedback. I had a death threat. I had all these different things. On thinking about it now, I kind of wish I would have taken that opportunity and maybe spoke a little bit about it and spoke about my feelings about the subject. But I don't know. I'll never have that chance again, I don't think. So,
well, I mean, here it is, and I think it's a great opportunity in a way, right? Because I mean, this is the thing. This is what's kind of interesting about this stuff. You know, I mean, exactly like you said. First of all, it was originally Drake's idea to do it in the first place. 2, exactly, he was doing it to make a point about the fact he was, where the history of blackface, which was that, originally in the entertainment industry, blacks would get 0 acting roles. They would paint a white guy's face, right? And the fact that there are still struggles that he was experiencing, and he wanted to shed light on that. And that's the beautiful thing about one photograph. That's where, and like I said off at the top of this, I think that's a bit of an exaggeration when they say, a photo says 1,000 words. It's really only, not all of them, but they provoke, right? And this was kind of interesting. I think this is where I think right off the bat, I mean, you kind of, with the name of this show, you were just sort of like, oh, geez, I don't know if that makes sense. But then it seemed as if, within like a little bit, you kind of turned around, you understood where I was coming from, right?
Yeah, it's true. But initially I did the same thing as those Drake haters, or I went, "Balls in your face. That's douchebaggy. That's stupid, blah, blah, blah." But then I went to your site, because I always creep everybody who actually emails me. And I went to your site expecting maybe a couple videos. And when I saw the amount of videos, I went, this guy put his money where his mouth is, or his balls where his face is. But yeah, no. So I just find that it's we live in change is constant. And unfortunately, I think what's happening is, in this world of instant gratification, is unfortunately instant thinking. So we're faced with that all the time. But I don't know if that's ever going to change. I don't know if that's ever going to get better. But yeah, I think if anybody actually looked into that image and looked up the meaning behind it, then it would make sense to them. And I just thought, well, it's a black guy in blackface. That's okay. He's okay to do that. He's allowed to say the N-word, and he's allowed to paint his face black if he wants. Right. He could wear a white, like Dave Chappelle. He could wear a KK. Fine. And Dave Chappelle was great at parodying racist and racism. But yeah, I don't know. I guess I might have seeked out that attention a long time ago by putting it on my website, but it was interesting that it didn't come until like maybe 5 or 6 years later.
That's fascinating. Yeah. You never know when these things are.
And I don't know if that actually, in a marketing sense, I don't know if that actually worked. It could work against me really quickly, depending on who I'm working for or whose opinion. But I think it's better than not. And I do respect Drake's opinion on that. So,
well, look, I mean, I think a couple things there. First of all, I mean, first there's the expression, that, there is no press is bad press, right? That, sometimes,
right.
Two, that, I think that is one sort of beautiful thing about the modern sort of day and age is that, because you can have cast such a wide net and get such broad exposure, you can it's not as if like it used to be, where you'd only kind of work within one community and geez, one little mistake and then your career was kind of ruined. It's sort of like you can the phrase that people use a lot these days is find your tribe, right? It's sort of like if they don't like you, if they're offended by what you do, so be it. That's not your audience. You can still find an audience somewhere else.
Well, that was always my point of view, because there's tons of other photographers out there, but I choose to shoot the way I shoot. So if people don't like my work, then fine. And also my marketing as well. I don't think I've ever put the word photographer on any of my, I don't have any of my, I don't have any of my ad. I make little cards and stuff, but not anywhere does it say photographer. So I don't know if that's, I kind of want the educated consumer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I had another guest who came on the other day, a gentleman named Kurt Mercadante. He made that sort of similar point. He's like, the problem today isn't fake news. It's the fact that people, they'll just read a headline and immediately get incensed, failing to completely read the article below that might, in many cases, often is making almost the opposite point. The title is there to draw you in. It's clickbait. It's grabbing your attention. And then, and here's I think where you and I kind of connected on this was, it's not my goal, nor do I think it's your goal to provoke or upset people, but we have to be willing to provoke and upset, right? It's like otherwise how else do we advance a conversation about anything?
Right. And then having said that, I think if you try too hard, it's not going to work. It just, that kind of fell in my lap, which was great. But yeah, because now I'm thinking, what have I done in the past to market myself that's a little different? And have I provoked? My provocation, if you will, is just by having, if you go on my Instagram, you'll see a lot of my kids, a lot of my family, because that's a big part of my life now. But you'll see all the other stuff that I love. You won't just see my portraiture work. And I think it's, if any other photographers are watching, I think it's a kind of a nail in your coffin if all you have in your photography arsenal is just portraits. It's boring. Once you see a couple images, that's it. That's why I like, because I'm constantly challenging myself. I mean, I like to do body work. I like to do a lot of some nude photography. I do shoot a lot of people, creative people who come to me. What I just said, I will offer free services line for so a lot of comedians come to me for that, and it's neat because they challenge me with a lot of their projects. So that sometimes will get put up there. So it's a mishmash of things that I love, and I think that kind of speaks and works better than just having tons of portraiture out there.
I mean, exactly. So, I mean, I guess there's a couple of other things that I could ask. One is, I'm just kind of curious about, because it's artists in general, right? And I mean, you are an artist, right? I mean, so it's a difficult thing to succeed in, to thrive, to create a business in. What advice do you have for people who are passionate about their art form? How did you survive? How did you make a career out of this?
Just put your blinders on and keep going. Work. Idleness is the devil's playground. It's just, if you're working hard on something, I think it shows. If you work hard at anything, and obviously making mistakes is part of that. I was talking to my son about that last night. I was just speaking out loud. I don't know if he was listening, but I've spoken to a few colleges in Sarnia. I've spoken to a few classes there, and I really want to dig up my old photos from way back and show them all the crap that I'd done. And Tony Fong is a photographer out of Ottawa, and he said, you basically are standing on the shit that you've created, the pile of shit, be it good or bad. You're still you're standing on it. So the bigger that pile, the more experience you have. So you can constantly thwart your advances or chances or progress by constantly looking out there and seeing who your competition is. And I actually put a quote on comparing oneself is really bad. I put that on a quote on my Instagram somewhere, and I can't remember the quote itself. But try not to compare yourself. I know it's really hard not to. I do it constantly, and I shouldn't. But just keep working. The more I work on stuff, the more I forget about everything else other than and also putting it out there too. Putting stuff out on Instagram that you absolutely love, and actually researching a topic that involves your work. Any kind of research, you will get into a rabbit hole and go somewhere else, and that helps you as well. And you'll be surprised at how many things will fall into place, or how many things kind of coincide, or how many things are connected that you didn't think were connected at all. There's a famous, there's a, I wonder if I have it. Sorry, I don't think I do. Looking for it. So, aha. Here's one of the cards that I have. So this is a card. So there's George Strombo and a teddy bear. I just like the images, and that might change. But so what I did is I put these images together. And what I did is, if I went to an agency or somewhere and I left a bunch of cards, everyone would be different. I would never have the same one twice. So everyone was kind of a little collector's items. But anyway, there's a shot that I had taken of Mark Randall. I put Mark Randall beside a picture of a dog in an art gallery, right? And I love those images and put them together. And I thought it really worked. And Mark Randall was wearing a jacket that was inspired by Patti Smith's album Horses. I don't know if you guys are old enough, you viewers, go back, look at the Patti Smith Horses, and you'll see her, and she's got a white shirt, black suspenders, and a black jacket, and a white shirt open. And Robert Mapplethorpe took that photo. And so the interesting thing is I was looking at my little collage that I'd make with Mark and the dog. The dog was in Olga Korper's gallery, and the images on the wall were of Robert Mapplethorpe's. So I thought that was really weird and really kind of a neat kind of serendipity that had happened. You know, I didn't put that together knowing that, you know, but taking the time and doing what I love and kind of creating helped me create that. And I think that it transcends, and that's what I tell my clients too. Bring your favorite clothes. Your favorite clothes will speak to the viewer who doesn't know you. And it's weird. Like people could come in and be with me and my client and pick out their favorite clothes, and they don't know that person. The favorite clothes speak to us on an unspoken level. If that makes any sense. But I just think genuine research and genuine love and thought behind anything will prevail, especially if it's in your work.
Yeah, no, there's so much that is jam-packed with so much great advice for really just about any industry, anything that anybody's doing. I mean, I first of all, I agree wholeheartedly. Like, I don't believe in mistakes. You know, like, to me, like, failure is learning.
Yeah, you have to. You
right?
have to.
Yeah, there's no way.
And just another thing too, and it's weird. It's a little. I was working out the other day, and you know, I spend a bit to work out, and as I'm working out, I was thinking, wow, it'd be so cool if somebody, if I could pay off my workouts, so somebody would come and just pay for all these workouts. And then I went, oh my God, no, that would never work. I would never work out the same again in my life.
Interesting point. Yeah.
Like, so you have to do that work, and it's like, I don't know, I think it's instinctive to do the work and sit back and relax and enjoy having done it, and people will appreciate it as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the beauty thing is, right, you found something that you love, that you are just passionate about, right? And I think that's a big part of it, right? I mean, I think for, you know, especially you and I talked a bit about how the economy is kind of changing a lot, and how we're moving to this sort of gig economy. You know, that I've seen predictions as low as 34%, as high as 50%. By the year 2020 is going to be freelance. People are going to have to figure out what is their superpower, what is their you know, their area, their zone of expertise, their passion, and build a business around that. But once you do that, once you know that, then it's just sort of everything else kind of falls into place. You won't, you know. And by the way, just I wanted to kind of throw in on you know, comparison. You're right. Comparison is a killer, except against yourself. Like, that's the only thing I think people should be comparing themselves against, is, you know, against your last work, against the last thing that you did. Are you, you know?
And yeah, and then, so as you were just speaking of that, there's a photographer called Platon. It's so bad once I get in this situation. But I think it's Platon. Anyway, really, really cool photographer. And so what I did is I was comparing his stuff, and it's not like mine at all, but I was influenced by him, and I started shooting kind of a little bit like him. So I think it's good to have fun and to try new things, and not to compare, but to adapt, or to and I think it's inevitable. I think you have to. And it's interesting too, because it's more and more. Not only am I a photographer, I'm a processor. I know Photoshop, and I know this much about Photoshop. I know this much about photography. So I know my people skills, but knowing more. Like, for instance, I'm doing movie gallery stills this afternoon. Yesterday I did actor stuff. I've done music things. I'm doing more corporate portraiture next week. So I'm all over the place. And this afternoon, I don't know what that's going to entail, because sometimes my clients are like, well, and you kind of have to adapt to whatever they say at the time. So
yeah, and I think the thing that again, that's sort of a bit of a nuance about comparison, right? It's more like that, what you're talking about when you take, let's say, you see somebody else's work and you maybe try to emulate it. That's more like healthy competition. You know, you and I talked a lot about music. We both, you know, love music, and we talked about a lot about the Beatles, right? I mean, I think that was part of the magic between John Lennon and Paul McCartney, was this sort of healthy competition. They drove each other. They're like, oh, okay, you did that. Okay, now I'm going to try this. Oh, all right, you did, right? I think that's what
Well, and there's a great story told by Mickey Dolenz, the drummer for the Monkees, where he basically says he's invited over to it's 1967. Paul or John invites him over to the studio. So he gets all dressed up, and he thinks it's going to be one big party, and he puts on his jewelry, his groovy glasses, his hair's all done, his poncho. He walks into the studio. He looks down, because it's a sunken studio, when he has to walk down the steps. But before he walks down the steps, he kind of looks around. He sees 4 guys on bridge chairs smoking cigarettes, have paper in front of them. It's the Beatles, so they're obviously discussing their work. And then all of a sudden he's distracted by a man who comes out of a booth that's directly opposite of him. And there's a man who walks out of the recording booth. He's wearing a 3-piece suit. a lab coat, and he goes, "Okay, boys, time's up. Let's get back to work." And that story itself is a huge, huge. Like if you just listen to that story, it's like they're working 9 to 5. They've got a 15-minute break. They respect their elders, and as you said, the healthy competition thing. And George Martin is part of that competition.
Absolutely.
Where he will say, "No," and they respect him because he's done shit. So he's so they respect his opinion, and it's all about collaboration. Also, another story that I heard while listening to the BBC Business Daily at 5 a.m. in the morning, coming to work. There was this guy found in this business, in this corporation, he found that the people who were at the biggest lunch tables, the lunch tables that had the most people on them, produced the most. And it was all about just collaboration. Sure, they weren't supposed to talk about work, but inevitably they do. And then you realize that it's all about collaboration and not about, well, it's my idea, it's my, but eventually good will prevail. And I think it's better to have more minds working on things than one.
Yeah, and I think more so today than ever before, because of the fact, as I said, we're going to this sort of gig economy. I often push back against this expression of find your tribe. I feel like it should be find your village, because it's like we're going back to this village economy, right? If everybody's freelance and it's sort of like back in the days when you lived in a small little community and somebody made candles and somebody did the shoes and somebody was a blacksmith, and you kind of you collaborated to make your society. It's that, but at a sort of a global level. And I don't in my industry now, I don't see when I see other marketers, I'm like, oh great, let's talk. Let's share ideas. There's just so much going on that no one person can be the master of all, and there's no need to be competition. There's enough business out there, right? So I agree with you. I think more so than ever, collaboration is.
Well, it's fun. I was just thinking. I was fortunate enough to shoot down in Miami last year, or was it this spring? Sure, time just flies. Anyway, I was lucky enough to be at this horse race where I was taking photos, and there was the VIP lounge and Lenny Kravitz and come on, what is his name? He's on my website and everything. 'Cause I'm happy.
Oh, Will
Pharrell.
Will Pharrell, yeah.
So Pharrell, and you could not separate Pharrell and Lenny Kravitz. They were in total conversation the whole time. And then when Pharrell wasn't with Lenny Kravitz, he was with somebody else, and they were just talking. Like, he wasn't there to, like, I'm sure he got paid to go there, but at this big party, because his name was he was great to have there for notoriety. But I just observed him the whole time, and it seemed like he was just talking about ideas and stuff. And he works with so many different people. Yeah. And he's having a blast, and he's doing it his way.
Yeah, no, I love, he's one of those people that sort of exudes this sort of energy, this kind of like exactly, like he's just him, and there's a spirit to him that kind of just like emanates from him. And that's again, I think it goes back to like, again, when you zone in on your zone of genius, when you figure out what your life purpose is and you start living it, exactly back to what sort of that expression that you talked about at the beginning about, professional versus an amateur, right? Like you just start doing it. What's you, then somehow you just exude this energy. I don't know how to put my thumb on it or explain it, but I think it's that, like, I mean, he's just living his life purpose. So once you start doing that, I mean, I think people just get this vibe from you.
That reminds me of a story where I heard, like, I love Beck. Beck's one of my favorite artists, and he had a conversation with Pharrell about happiness, because he had that song called Happy, but genuinely trying to convey happiness in music without it sounding contrite or false. But I just found that interesting, how they kind of were discussing it. And then another thing I was thinking of too is how because change is constant, if you don't change, you're dead. If there's a photographer, Shin Sagino, old Asian photographer who is probably, could be in his 70s by now. And I think he was wearing a T-shirt that said something to that in one of his posts. It was basically like change or die. And in photography, it's very important.
You've had to adapt, obviously, a ton, right? Like, I mean, exactly like you were saying, like you started in the days of black rooms and actual film, and now everything's digital, and you're doing Photoshop.
Take a photo. Anybody?
No, not at the level that you do, my friend.
Interesting, but with that comes change as well, because things are a little more loosey-goosey. Things are a little more fun. Like, for instance, the corporate headshots I'm taking next week, I'm taking people out of the office. I'm shooting, instead of a background, I'm shooting them in their environments and then out of their environments. So it's going to be, and I think I see a move to that big time too, where people are having a lot of fun. And the funny thing is when I first started, the idea is that I thought I was the only one who had them. Somebody down in California had the same ideas. They were shooting the kind of the same way, yet we didn't have social media to see that. But I think we kind of, great minds think of alike.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and you're tapping into something that I've spoken a lot about on the show, and something I think you and I talked about, that this is me saying that there's this sort of new economy of authenticity. People are sick of that beautiful sheen and package and the perfect commercial and the perfect video. They just want things to be real. They want people to be real. And at the end of the day, I mean, that's, in a business context, people buy from people who they know, like, and trust. And they're not, people have, very, good bullshit detectors, right? Right?
And that's what, going back to, I go to a competitor photographer's Instagram page, and it's all the same thing. It's all just maybe slightly different backgrounds, but all the same kind of pose and everything. I'm like, that's bullshit. To me, it's not bullshit, but it's kind of like, it's boring. It's just one aspect of that photographer. But if you see that photographer with, in one of the shots, or if you see the life of that person in any other way, it just kind of opens things up a little bit. But yeah, that the economy of authenticity is or just authenticity itself, without trying too hard.
Well, I think once you're trying, then you're not automatically not authentic.
Yeah.
Right. Like, once you're trying to achieve an image, then that's not. Then you're no longer authentic. So you're right. You can't try. You can't. But it will. Yeah. But it goes back to. It goes back again to, I think, what we're saying about, and why I think you're so good at what you do, again, is that you found something that you love, that you're passionate about. You liked it. It was a differentiator for you and your family, right? And you enjoyed it, and you were fascinated by it.
I didn't mention I did have a brother. I do have a brother, Tim,
yes,
who does the exact same thing I do. And he actually started a business before I did. But I had a camera before he did. So it was kind of interesting. And we had lived separately when he was in school, I had a camera. But I think we kind of influenced each other somewhat back then when he first started. I'm thinking by me buying a camera. But he kind of started the business, and I kind of, he started doing headshots of actors, and the people he couldn't shoot, he would send to me. In the meantime, I was doing a lot of music photography, and just having fun. So, and then the ball started rolling. So I started doing more headshots and more music stuff and branched out. But I just didn't want to not mention the great influence of my brother. And the nice thing about having that was you have to do a good job. And I was working on some of his film as well. I was developing some, and I had to do a really good job. So he was a great influence on me that way. But the neat thing about having that competition is having that, I don't want to be like him kind of thing. Right. He loved a clean background. He loved very clean, and I loved messy and stuff. So that was a good, that was good for competition and
yeah. Yeah, no, it's healthy stuff. Yeah, for sure. Man, it's so cool because, like, man, it's like, I think it's so neat, like, talking to you. First of all, I mean, you and I think I could just go on with you for hours and hours and hours. There's so much to sort of go at. But it's kind of neat how, just from your industry, from your experience, how much it transcends into just anybody's career. Like this, it's good advice, I think, that you're giving for regardless of what it is that you want to do, whether you want to write, whether you want to, do project management, whatever it is, whatever it is that you're passionate about, everything that you're saying is a good lesson and applicable to.
I think that's what we find in all these videos that you have, and all the interviews that you have, all the interviews that I've listened to of yours, and I'm a huge Howard Stern fan. Don't judge. But his interviews are remarkable because they are not unlike yours. They're like an hour and a half, 2 hours or whatever. And you get to learn a lot about people. And when you get to learn all the things that they did and the mistakes that they made and the progress that they made. And it's not unlike what do they call those things where you go and it's like a motivational conference kind of thing. But it is kind of like that. Damn, I was going to say something else. And I forgot. I need more coffee.
Yeah, it's true that, that is, basically that is exactly, like the goal of the show is to help people, give real, tangible, actionable, helpful advice to inspire a bit. I think that exactly, it's the only way is to sort of really kind of focus in on the person's his own genius and extract out of them, what have their life lessons.
Yeah, because I think as photographers, we're very individual people. I'm sitting in front of my computer, and I don't really meet with other photographers. The only chance that today I could have met. They're showing the new the Z6 and Z7 cameras. It's a new Nikon equipment. That was going to be my only time to go and meet some other photographers, because we used to have dark rooms that we'd go into. And now that doesn't happen. So webcasts like yours, that's how we get our inspiration from. Because we used to get it from other people, and people like, and also people are working from home more and more and more. So that human connection is gone. So it's nice to have these things.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think so. It's a funny thing. I think that's what I've learned in doing the show. Originally, for sure, the focus was very limited to just marketing and sales advice. But as I started to do it, I realized that, my industry, marketing, has been completely transformed through social media. Social media has transformed society. And that basically, even though it's all kind of interrelated, so even though people might have their industry expertise, most of my guests come on and they've got more that they want to talk about. There's more to share.
Well, it's funny because you just said that, and I'm thinking, oh my God. So, and you said social media. I'm like, so this morning I checked my Instagram. Boom, somebody's mentioned my name on Instagram. That is the best form of marketing in the world. Is somebody tagging me, putting my name in their photo, and other people go, oh my God, I want to shot with David Leyes. I want to shoot with David Leyes. Or I love that. It's just, it gets your name out there. Also, there's another thing I tell, my mother was an amazing real estate agent, and she was a real estate agent for about 35 years. And I never remembered her having an image, having a photo, right? I'm sure there were, and there are, but she never counted on that image to sell her. So anytime a real estate agent comes in, I always say, how many images represented my mom in her incredibly successful 35-year career as a real estate agent? And they go, how many? And I go, none, because she was good. And they go, what are you saying this? Why am I here? And I go, but in the world of social media, it's nice to have something that represents us honestly, and that we like and that we're proud of. So, and we're expecting now to see people. I expected to see you when I creeped you, right? So I'm expecting to see the person that I'm dealing with or that I might be doing business with. And so you do need a photo. But for instance, in real estate, and not unlike your work or my work, it's all word of mouth. I think the majority of it is. So having people talk about you is the best form of marketing in the world. Oh, absolutely. I mean, you can get a cold lead through an ad, but then your likelihood of converting that is, if you're a decent salesperson, is maybe 10%. But a referral, I mean, it's just that's a warm audience, not a cold audience. You don't have to warm them up. They've already been
you've already sort of had some credibility back behind you. So absolutely, that is the best form of advertising. I want to be respectful of your time. I know you've got to like pack up your whole studio there in a bit and go off to another shoot. So any last sort of final words of advice for photographers? You know, any tips, tricks, lighting strategies?
A
million. I know too many. That's a too loaded question for you.
I had a co-op student. No, I didn't have a co-op student. I think of her as a co-op student because she's an amazing photographer. She's an amazing being. Emma, I just shot her a couple weeks ago. Really cool chick. And I'm packing up, I'm closing my blinds and everything. I look out my window, and she's got this old Minolta film camera, and she's out creating these little montage across the street in the crack house, you know, with the chairs that the guy sits on every day and talks to people, yells at people. She was like, he wasn't there. So she was like just taking chairs and just setting up little tableaus and taking pictures. And I was like, that is cool. So I guess it's just trying new things, seeing how they work. And she's using a film camera. So she's paying for that film. It's not even a digital camera.
Right.
So my advice is just more. If you really love something, just keep doing it. Although the new equipment that's coming out is fucking amazing. And it's making me a better photographer. The most important, the Sony A7 III I'm working with right now. And I want the A9, but or the new Nikons that are coming up because they're silent. I still like the old stuff, and it's just fun to have. But also, it doesn't matter what you use; it's the result. I have images on my website, and I have images in my portfolio taken from my iPhone.
Well, you know what? I mean, it's funny, just to bring it back to the Beatles, you know, I think I used to say that a lot when I was doing music years ago. I was like, you know, think about it, guys. Like they were using 4 tracks, right? Like any individual now has a studio that's infinitely better, you know, than anything that they had to record on. What was the difference? It was the performance, right?
And the ability to take the horns and the whatever, and for those engineers to think the way they did.
Yeah.
And separate sound and to have it all work out, or to take the piano, slow it down, and then speed it back up. And they were doing shit that was like incredible with 4 tracks. With 4 tracks, exactly. They were doing it in mono, and then like somebody else was splitting it in stereo. So it, but yeah, no, the brilliant example.